Good day, welcome back to another episode on Element 14 Presents. I'm Wesley Gardner, aka Game Tech, and on today's episode we will be building an off-grid solar charge station. In the coming months I will be moving, and I won't have power at my fingertips. So projects will become a bit of a chore. Paired with the right tools and equipment and a solar charge station, I should be able to accomplish all my projects. For this project, we'll be using the DuraTool Rolling Workshop as our main unit. The reason for this is basically due to its design and the material it's made of. And when it's fully loaded and as heavy as I could make it, I was still able to maneuver it around. What we're going to do first is basically get things set in here and work on the solar. We will be using two 33 amp hour batteries. Time for some quick math. 33 amp hours times 2 is 66 amp hours. 66 amp hours times 12 is 792 watt hours. Basically, we can use 1 watt for 792 hours. We will have to divide our devices into it to find out the total consumption and runtime we can expect for each device. I'll be using a 100 watt folding solar panel. Eventually, I'll be upgrading it to a 250 watt system as it would be more ideal for this setup. But 100 watt and low wattage usage, we should be good since we won't be using this all the time. There is a lot more math involved in this project, which we can certainly cover along the way, and I'll make sure to add more information regarding calculating the size of the solar panel and the batteries for your project on the Element 14 community. Links will be in the description below. So with that being said, let's go ahead and convert this guy into our off-grid solar powered charge station. So when batteries come from anywhere, basically they're charged, but over time batteries do lose some of their power. So what I want to do before I install these batteries is I want to make sure that they're healthy batteries. So we need to test them out. So what I have here is a battery tester. When testing the batteries out, I love to use this. I use this at work all the time. So what I'm going to do is I want to test each of these batteries, check out their information. The great thing about this is I'm able to hook it up to my laptop later and dump all the information onto the computer there, so I know exactly what the status of each battery is. Okay, so here is our meter. We're showing 12.8 volts. We're going to go to battery test, and we're going to go to scooter, AGM spiral. We're going to go GB, and then we're going to put our amp hour in. Okay, so I have it set on 33 amp hours for the test, and these results are what we're going to be wanting. So the health, 76, charge, 100%. So all that information we're going to be able to put onto the computer and have that for future reference. Now 76% health, that sounds like it needs a little bit of a top up on the charge, but we'll find out soon enough. On to battery number 2. So a little better reading on it, 12.81 volts, and there we go. We've got more information. So now what we'll do is we'll go ahead and we'll get these guys here installed into the rolling workshop here. So this is fairly heavy. This door will support it. There's no actual seam on the bottom here. So what I'll do is I'll probably get a little piece of foam or something to put in behind here and maybe on the front of it here. Kind of like put it around it just to kind of give it a little bit of an air gap. If we want to have our main charge controller down here and then run our cable up, because we're not going to be looking at that too much. It's going to be all the other stuff, and then we can have all our stuff mounted in this drawer up top here. I need to figure out how to charge this with the solar. What I'll do is I'll have it so the cables come down through here straight across, and then what I'll do is I'll just mark a line along here. That cable is going to be free to slide back and forth and not get caught up, and then we can mount our connector on the outside there. Now that I have my lines marked out here, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead, we're going to get that hole drilled There's not too much cleanup to do there. What we'll do is we'll go ahead and get that filed out and make that nice. What we'll be using is this plug here. This will go on the outside. Basically, it's just gonna run on that drill bit. And that's what we want when it comes to the cable. Maybe this guy will fit now. So there we go, we've got the plug now installed there, and as you can see, we can open this up, we can plug our solar panel into here now. So what we're going to do is get our 20 amp solar charge controller installed. I've pre-drilled my mounting holes for it here, put a couple self-tapping screws in there, some short ones, just to hold that in place, and then we'll install the batteries. So right down in here, there's a little plastic tab. I might have to shear that off. We're gonna use Velcro. We're gonna put pieces on both batteries on the bottom. We're gonna then Velcro it to the bottom of the case. I need to do a lot more cutting and a lot more drilling. So let's get to it. We've got our battery meter here, which will be a nice addition so we can actually see what's going on all the time. I won't have to hook up anything separate to look at the status of the battery. With any sort of equipment, why not make it the way you wanted it? So this is my one treat for in this machine, and it is a little stereo. So it does have 2 speakers on it, so I don't need a lot of sound. It's just to fill those silent gaps at times. All of these will be on a switch. So that way we can actually turn things on and off, and we don't need to have it drawing power when they're not being used. Hopefully it has an internal battery that keeps the settings. If not, the time will just always be wrong. So I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna get cutting the holes for the display panel for the inside that we're going to be using. So for that, what we're going to be using is a marine grade control panel. All the wiring can be done from inside this drawer here, and we can just lift that panel up to start, and then once it's all set, then we can use some self-tapping screws to seal it in there. It's not going to move around. We could do other options as well for mounting that, but since we have 1 layer of plastic on each of these drawers to go through, what I'm going to do is 3D print some inserts for the wires to go in. These are just riveted in, so there's not much to them. There we go. We got a nice little access door here. Just going to measure from here to the back. We're at 2 inches, 2 inches, 4 1/4. So we're gonna go here. So I just wanted to get that started there, and now I'm just gonna take my tape measure here, and I'm gonna just go ahead and measure how much I need to make that. So about 5 inch. I'm gonna say 3 inches is gonna be more than enough. I'd prefer to get it flush the first time, right? But something's rubbing somewhere. Now we should fit. Perfect. That is good and flush. Taking a toolbox like this, a mobile workshop or whatever you want to call it, and building in something that's going to be so functional. You could take this, compare it to, you know, some of those big name companies, and you'll find that they're missing things that you want. So that's the thing. This thing is purely designed for my needs. And that's the thing. You're going to be able to do it your way. Build your system the way you want it. This system here, we can scale it down, we can scale it up, we can do whatever we want. Just want to kind of cut it up a little bit, not too much though. And yeah, so that'll go in there now. But I will have to auger it out just a little bit. We want to get all our lines run, test it, and then we can make things all pretty. And I'll get things 3D printed. So I'm just going to run both of my power cables down into the other bin there. that guy here, this guy here. We're just gonna shove this down in here a little bit more. Then our batteries will just go here. I'm just soldering up the 12-volt line, which is going to go to the accessory on the solar charge controller. I could directly connect to the battery. These are all fused. So these are going to be my output lines here. This will be my main input line. So I'm just going to go ahead. I'm going to get this soldered up here. Give it a little bit of a tug test. Okay, and put our heat shrink over top. That'll hold it in place. I had soldered my lines here to the 12-volt accessory on the solar charge controller. Now I'm probably going to swap that over to the battery, but I kind of wanted to see what would happen. I got to look at the manual on it and see what kind of output that will do and make sure it'll be enough amperage if needed. If it's some low amperage, we'll just swap it over onto the battery. I've got all my wires labeled here, so I know exactly which one it is. So this has 3 lines on it. This has 4 lines on it. And there should be one with no lines on it. And that is going to be our first port here. So 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Do you like winning free stuff? Are you an electronics hobbyist? Do you like building cool projects and winning prizes for what you build? The Element 14 community presents Project 14, the member-driven destination where you decide on the challenge. You enter projects to win monthly prizes and you vote on the winners. What are you waiting for? Join the Element 14 community so you too can enter one of our contests or submit an idea for your own. Join now!
Now I've wired up this guy here, and I've connected the panel up top here, and I've run that through, and now I got a bunch of wires here. I've got the inverter wires here. I've got the ground for that panel up top there, as well as the power line for that as well. And then I have another switch item that is going to go on here, but I'll have it down in this bin here. So that'll give us 2 plugs that are going to be used. What I'm realizing is I might have to work more on the drawer here, because that top panel on the top here wants to it's not as smooth as I'd like when opening and closing the drawer. I need to test this out to make sure it's going to work, and I want to get this watt meter little display working as well here. So I'm going to hook that guy up. Then we'll try to get this guy going. I think I got it set up right. Usually with these ones, there's usually a power line, which is usually yellow, and an ignition line, so that senses that the vehicle is turned on. So if you bridge those two together, it will automatically turn on. But if you have it on a switch up here, then you're able to turn it on and off through there. The only thing I think that changes really is when you power it off up there, you're going to lose your clock or any data like that. So I'm not too sure. Okay, so all we're going to do is we're going to get our battery terminal connections into place here. So I'm just going to set that in there. Set this guy in here. And then we're not going to be using this port. Originally, I was going to have this come up and power that console at the top. But I'm thinking we're just going to go directly off the battery, just because it seems like a better idea for right now. And I do have one other thing that I am going to put onto the accessory port here. So now we have our 2 cables here, which will go to our battery once it's in here. So it'll, you know, be something like that. Anyways, this just gives us enough room that when it's in here, both terminals are going to be able to be connected really easily. And then we're going to just have to get another jumper wire to go from the batteries here, or the battery here, to the battery at the back, and then we can put them together. But for right now, we're just going to connect one battery just to get the system going. So on this guy here, this is a 100 amp shunt. Way too big for this system. A 50 amp would have been more ideal, since we are going to be adding more solar panels and stuff to that. So on this guy here, this screw at the very bottom here, I need to get this ground onto there, and then this power is just going to come over to this side. Tighten this guy up a little bit. Bolts on here are 10 mil. So if you got a little 10 mil socket, you can go ahead and get that all tightened up. The reason why I went with the Samlex solar controller is because it didn't have like a display on it. It didn't have all the stuff I didn't need on it. So you can get ones with USB ports and stuff like that. Depending on your project, you may or may not want them. This project, because I have USB ports all over the place, even on the front deck here, I don't need an elaborate little charge controller. I just need a basic one that's going to function and do its job for a long period of time. So that's why I went with this one, because the build material as well as the functionality of it, and it is a 20 amp controller, so I will be able to add another 100 watt panel on there, no problem. So I just got the meter set up here. It looks pretty cool, but like I said, it's always going to be on. Hopefully there's a way to, okay, there we go. One press, it's off. One press, it's on. Perfect. That's exactly what I wanted. We're going to be able to then see how much power this guy will use when the system is on, as well as everything else in the system. When it comes to batteries, batteries aren't cheap in general. So when you build a project like this, do your math, do your homework, and always build over and above what you want. But for now, let's get this guy up and running. Let's get some tunes pumping and see how it works and how well we can get this meter to work here to see what we're drawing when charging batteries and stuff like that. I need some ends for, so this is ground, so this is going to go onto this one, but this is a little too big. So I'm going to see if we can use that smaller screw in here as our grounding screw. So I'm going to pull that one out and put that in here. I'll put some washers around it so it's got a good connection. We're just going to use this one for this, and that should go in there absolutely fine. And then we'll crimp it down, give it the old squeezeroo, and then give it a little tug test. Okay, we're good. If I connect this to here, I should get my voltage up on the top. Yes, I do. This is going to be my inverter. So once I plug this in, my inverter should go on. Yes, I do have power to in my inverter. So my inverter is actually turned on right at the moment here. Okay, so I'm just going to turn the volume up a little bit, and we're going to try this. That's definitely loud enough. Okay, so we've got the stereo working. We've got our front battery meter here. We're sitting at voltage 12.6 volts, 1.25 watts by the looks of it, 1.29. If I power this down, we should use probably around 1 watt or half a watt is what we're sitting at, and that's giving us our time display. We can definitely even turn this off and we'll save even more power. Right now I only have the one battery hooked up. I'm going to get the other battery hooked up, and then we should be able to go ahead, get this outside, get some solar going. This is definitely something that I'm going to come back to in the future and revisit, as even now, since the beginning of the video, my idea of what I wanted and what I needed were two different things in this project. I've now had a few power outages, and I've used this unit a few times. One night we ended up watching TV with the power outage. We were probably the only person on the island that we're on that had TV, besides those with generators and their own power stations. So if you would like to see more solar projects, please leave a like, leave a comment below, and let me know what you would change or do differently in your project. To me, this was a great beginner setup so that I can be able to have a nice job site power station, as well as something for when the power goes out. With the power watt meter that is on this machine, I was able to tell the drain on the battery. I was consuming just under 100 watts. I can get just under 8 hours of TV on that, and I'm using a 55-inch TV and my cable receiver plugged into it. And I did the math, and it should have used more power, but it didn't. So that's the max power draw that you're going to be calculating with. So it might be your peak voltage, and then it might level out or come down. It's no different than a laptop. Lightly use it. You're not going to hog too much of the resources, cause things to heat up and use more power. So now that I've built this one, I might want to build 2 more units. One smaller and one even larger than this. So I hope you enjoyed this. I will have more information on the Element 14 community. I will be adding some more documents and things, and hopefully you enjoyed and learned something today. Thank you for watching, everyone. You have a wonderful day, a wonderful week, and we'll see you next time. Take care, eh?